Fist of the North Star is one of the best OG shonen mangas out there, and it has inspired insane classics like JoJos and Berserk. And if you are an uncultured swine like me, you probably only know of it because of that one meme. You are already dead. What? This manga has been on my list for a minute now, so after a long and heated debate between me and the voices in my head, I decided to read it. And honestly, after reading this manga, all I can say is that my testosterone levels have at least doubled. And this manga is basically someone watching Mad Max and going, what if the main character was Bruce Lee? And that's not even a joke, by the way. The author has legit stated that the world and the setting of this universe is heavily inspired by Mad Max 2. Which is fucking awesome, by the way. Imagine every time you have an idea, you just implement it and you make a fucking masterpiece out of it. I mean, couldn't be me. I make shitty videos on the internet. But you know, it could be you. So anyways, before I get more sidetracked, let me set the scene up for you. The nukes go off because humans are human. And in this post-apocalyptic world, there's only one rule. The strong will survive and the weak will suffer. So basically a dog-eat-dog world. So the first chapter goes like this. Kenshiro, our main character, is looking like a bum and searching for some water. But suddenly he gets trapped by low-level villager NPCs. So he gets caught and they put him in a jail cell. And in this cell, we meet two of the most important characters in this manga. Rin and Bat. So Bat is the other inmate little gangster wannabe brat who basically accompanies Kenshiro throughout this story and makes Kenshiro show more of his emotions. And Rin is the little mute girl who is in charge of guarding the cell. And she is mute because of all the trauma that she has endured, but that's no problem because Kenshiro just simply presses the unmute button and fixes her. So after chilling in the cell for a bit, the villagers come back to check Kenshiro's chest to see if he is part of a bandit crew. But after seeing his chest and the 7 scars, they realize he is Kenshiro of the Big Dipper. But I would like to call him the Big Dripper, cause he is legit drip incarnate. I mean, I can see how this manga inspired the fashion in JoJo's, cause the fashion in this manga is top notch. So after all that shit happens, the bandits attack and Kenshiro just goes Hulk mode and bends the metal bars in prison. And he does that for no goddamn reason, by the way. Just a panel ago, Rin gave him a fucking key. But I guess it adds to the giga chattery factor of his character. In the next scene, the bandit leader threatens the villagers for food by using Rin as a hostage, in classic shonen fashion. Kenshiro sees this and goes mad mode. He hits him with a and for the first time, we, as the readers, witness the iconic "you are already dead" move by him. Which doesn't get old, trust me, he does that shit like 400 times throughout the manga, and it never is not hype. So that's the first chapter of this manga, and as far as first chapters go, I feel like this one is pretty strong. We get important character introductions, and a pretty good feel of Kenshiro as a character. I'm going to talk a bit more about martial arts and the characters, but I'm going to skip the side quest mini-bosses, cause I would love to make a video about Dog Whisperer being the GOAT, but we don't have time for it. Do we? You know what, as a matter of fact, change of plans, we're doing it. Listen to me, Dog Whisperer is the GOAT because he likes dogs more than humans, more than hoes, more than bros. He just cares about dogs. His ideology is a lot more broader than Kenshiro. Yeah, we're not doing that past Ourwin, sorry. So I'll start with the martial arts. In this manga, there is 2 big martial arts, Hokuto Shinken and Nanto Seiken, which are polar opposites. Hokuto Shinken can only have one true successor, but unlike Hokuto, Nanto has many users and many branches. So Hokuto Shinken uses channeling points within the body and deals damage from inside. And Nanto, being the polar opposite of that, damages opponents from outside. So with all this information, you would think it's a fair matchup between Hokuto and Nanto. But that's not the case. Even the strongest Nanto user, Sutter, said that Hokuto is much better than Nanto, which I completely agree with, because Hokuto has a move that lets them completely copy other martial arts. And we could all agree that is fucking OP, right? But before we get into that, let's talk about all the Nanto users. So Nanto has 6 main branches with their own successors: Shin, Rei, Yuda, Shu, Sutter, and Yuria. So let's start with Shin. Shin is the first Nanto user we see in this manga, and the first panel we see him in, he is getting scrubbed by 2 naked ladies. Even I can't deny the fact that this brother has some aura. I mean, he's a piece of garbage human filth that forced his best friend's spouse to break up with him and almost drove her into suicide, but he do be having a bit of skibidi toilet aura. But even after he pulls all that shit on Kenshiro, Kenshiro still buries him, showing how compassionate and caring he truly is. Personally, I think Kenshiro vs Shin was one of the best fights in this manga. It set the tone for the rest of the manga, and Shin just going out on his own was just perfect. Now let's move on to the second person in this group, Ray. He's an actual decent human being in this fucked up world, which is kind of rare. I mean, he did do a little bit of sexual harassment, which was weird, but other than that, he was a pretty decent character. And his little side story with his sister and Mamiya were great too. This video doesn't have a Mamiya section, but it should, cause she is the only waifu in this manga that I care about. I mean, she is a bit dumb, God bless her soul, but her heart is in the right place. The only thing that bothers me with Ray is the fact that he fought with Rao. Like, why would you ever take that fight and not just wait for Kenshiro? It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I get that he was trying to repay Kenshiro's kindness, but doing that at the price of his life was not the best move. At least we got to see him fight versus Yura before his demise, which kinda made his character whole, showing no matter what, he will go out of his way for his loved ones. And Mamiya accepting her womanhood as a result of Rei's death was a good conclusion to that story. Okay, so let's talk about our next character. We talked about him a little bit in our previous section of this video. I truly hate him, but let's just get it over with. Yuda. This character legit has nothing going on for him. He's just a punching bag for Rei. I mean, his drip is on point, but that's about all he has. Like every character in this manga, he has a backstory too, so you can understand where he's coming from. But you can't understand where he's coming from because he has the logic of a 5-year-old. He's obsessed with beauty, so he gets jealous of other people's beautiful moves. That's why he hates Rei, because Rei did a move and it was so beautiful that he's like, holy shit, I admired it. And because of that, I hate him now. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, buddy. Just give me 5 more chapters of Dog Whisperer and get this fraud out of my face, please. So I talked about the character I hate the most between the Nanto users. Let's talk about the one that I love the most, Shu. Shu is a blind man that sees the world more clearly compared to people with sight. Shu was not born a blind man. He took his own eyesight cause he saw potential in Kenshiro and wanted to let him live. And the price for Kenshiro's life was his own sight. When years go by and these two meet each other again, he drops one of the hardest lines ever in this manga. Kenshiro, you have begun to shine far brighter than the light I have lost. Like what? He's on some Master Oogway shit, man, and I'm here for it. I love it. I legit like this character more than Rei even. I feel like he didn't even have the spotlight half as much as Rei did. And in that short amount of time, he turned me into his biggest glazer. But I guess it's just me though. I like characters that go beyond the term kind for the next generation. Plus, his death was absolute fucking cinema. Shu's death was one of the only times I cried reading this manga. And I didn't just cry, it wasn't a manly cry like Kenshiro's crying. It was more like Yuda crying. I cried like a little bitch. Hey, and don't come at me saying you didn't cry reading that shit, bro. That shit was peak. Okay, it's time for the Birdman himself. The strongest Nanto user that even Rao acknowledges. Sutter. Sutter is undoubtedly the strongest Nanto user, but that don't change the fact that he's a prick that uses child labor. This brother thinks he's a high-end brand. I don't get it. In terms of character and ideology, Sutter is the exact opposite of Shu. He doesn't give a fuck about kindness and love. All he cares about is domination, but he wasn't always like that. Back in the day, he had a master who was like a father to him, and he showed him love and kindness. But when he turned 15, his master was like, yo, this is your last test, take this blindfold and fight off your challenger. And as you can guess, the challenger was his master. So Sutter kills his own master unknowingly and loses his shit. And he just goes, fuck this weak-ass love shit, man, it's demon time. So obviously Kenshiro goes and fights with him, and he gets completely manhandled because Sutter has a mysterious body that even Rao can't deal with. And because Rao wants to figure this mystery out, he helps Kenshiro and treats his wounds, so he can figure the mystery out for him. Which he does. Sutter just has reversed channeling points, and after figuring that out, Kenshiro beats his ass. And honest to God, I love this fight. But more than the action, I loved the ideologies clashing. One fighting for domination, one fighting for love. And the guy fighting for domination gets dominated by love, which was a perfect ending for that arc. I love the ending, I'll be honest. Okay, it's time for the only female in this group, Yuria. Yuria doesn't practice martial arts at all, but she is part of the Nanto Rokuseiken bloodline, and because of that she's included in this group. But even though she doesn't practice martial arts, she does have built-in succubus powers. Everybody and their brother loves this chick, man. Even her own brother, Juza, who is part of the 5 Chariots, which is a group of martial artists that serve under Yuria. And out of these 5 martial artists, I only liked 2 of them. The Fire Brother and the Wind Brother just die in the span of a single chapter, and the supposed mustache general that does strategy doesn't do strategy that well. But the remaining 2, Juza and Fudo, are some of the best characters in that arc. Juza is an actual Giga Chad. He's one of the handful amount of people that rode on Kokuo and fought with Rao and pushed him a decent amount. And he did all that with a martial arts that was self-taught, which is crazy, by the way. Imagine going against one of the strongest actually the strongest martial arts in this manga with just a fucking ball. And as cool as he is, he's not beating the simp plus incest allegations, which is the only reason why I like Fudo more than him. Plus, Fudo is such a caring father figure that I cannot put any other chariots above him, man. He takes care of dozens of orphans and tends to them like his own children, and is just a genuine and loving teddy bear. But he wasn't always like that. Back in the day, he used to be a demon, a person on such demon time that made Rao feel fear. So you might ask, how did he change so much? And the answer lies within Yuria. After meeting Yuria and being influenced by her selfless and motherly nature, he realized that every life is precious and should be protected. And I'm just a sucker for this type of growth in any kind of fiction, which is why I love Vinland Saga Season 2 so much. And speaking of Vinland Saga, Yukimura was inspired to become an artist after reading Fistofthenorthstar as a child, which just brings the whole circle back together like a fucking story, and I love it, man. But before I get more sidetracked, let's talk about Yuria herself. I'm very conflicted on Yuria as a character. I do realize without her, half the cast wouldn't be who they are. And exactly for that reason, she feels like a plot device at times. And I'm not gonna lie, her surviving that fall was a bit of movie magic bullshit, as I like to call it. But other than that, I don't have any problems with her character. She makes a city of freedom where everybody is equal, which is awesome in a fucked up world like this. And no matter what happens, she stays loyal to my king, Kenshiro. So hey, all is good, no problems with you, but Mamiya is the superior character and the Hokuto boys should open their eyes and see the character with more depth and convert into Mamiya supremacy. I don't give a fuck. I said it. Yo, dumbass, what did we say about staying on point, huh? Ouch, man! You're right. I'll get to it. Now that we are done with the Nanto users, let's move on to the Hokuto boys, and I'll start with the one that has the least relevance to the story, Jari. Honestly, I don't like much about Jari. He does have a pretty good design, and he's one of the only characters that utilizes guns, but other than that, the only other good characteristic that he has is the fact that he's not a simp for Yuria, which is probably the rarest trait in this manga. And that's it, that's all the good traits that there is to him. Other than that, he's just an arrogant little loser that is driven by greed. And his arrogance is so much, it's insane to me. It's crazy that he gets beat up so badly by a Kenshiro that's going easy on him and lets him live, and he goes, let me just piss him off even more, cause that'll end well for me. I learned a little bit of Nanto, so I should be able to win against Kenshiro now. At that point I feel like it's not even arrogance, it's just delusion. But I feel like he's one of those characters where you can't have any empathy towards them, and you just naturally hate them. And that's definitely his purpose in this manga. He is a legitimate piece of shit that essentially influenced Shin into acting out the way he did. But all things considered, I really enjoyed the fight between him and Kenshiro, cause it's just a pure rage-driven fight and he gets his ass beat, so it's pretty satisfying to read. I'm a simple man, I like simple stuff. Let's be honest though, he doesn't even hold a candle to anybody else in this group. I feel like the Blood Brothers, Toki and Rao, come as a pack, and they are definitely levels above him. First off, I want to talk about the first fight these two have. It is legitimately one of the best choreographed fights in this manga, and it just oozes with manliness. Like what? This brother Rao pulls out a fucking sai that he stole from Raphael and stabs grabs Toki's foot so he can't dodge and they just duke it out like men. This scene alone hooked me on this manga. And in my opinion, when it comes to these two characters, you can't have one and not have the other, cause they really do balance each other out, and without one, the other's characteristics would overpower the story. So let's get to them on a bit of a deeper level. I'll start with Toki. Never in my life could I have guessed that I could like an absolute good character this much. He's definitely top 2 in this manga, and he's not 2. In fact, he's one of the very few absolute good characters that I have seen who is this well written, which is very hard to do by the way, and one of the main factors for me liking him this much is the fact that every single sacrifice he makes feel in character. Like, of course he would sacrifice his own life and love for his brother Kenshiro. Any other character does this shit, I'm like, yeah, that's shit corny. But when it's Toki, I'm like, yeah, that's in character. And when you have a character this kind, you need to balance him out, and that's where Ro comes in. Every time these two are in the same panel, it's a fucking masterpiece. And we witnessed this firsthand in their final fight, which is my favorite fight in this manga, and that's with good reason by the way. It is such a climactic read when you see Toki try and keep his promise to Ro and seal his fist, while using his martial arts, and of course he does that. This man has admired his brother all his life. It makes so much sense to me that he uses his martial arts in this fight, and it is such a perfectly emotional fight. I mean, it's so emotional, even Ro cries at the end of it. So how could I not? The dynamic these two have ever since they were children is so nice, man. Their brotherly love is so well written. I mean, I wouldn't know a thing, I have no siblings, but that shit was magnificent. And speaking of brothers and magnificent, let's move on to Ro. So when it comes to Ro, I know he's not a good man, I know he's a prick, but damn does this man have enough aura to make you mesmerized. He's a man with ambition that has a vision for this world. He wants to see a world full of warriors where you and your strength alone are above all else. And we really see his ideology when he stumbles upon a village where people have given up their free will and abandoned their resistance. So when he sees this shit, he naturally gets pissed off and gives a real good speech. Listen boy, if you're afraid, then fight back. Bite off my arm if you must win. You will never stop trembling if you don't fight. And that's his whole shtick as a character. He believes emotions like love, fear, and sorrow are a waste, and he himself struggles throughout the whole series trying to bury them, which ultimately leads to his downfall. In his last fight against Kenshiro, he is by no means weaker than him. Kenshiro only wins against him because Ro runs from these emotions, while Kenshiro not only embraces them, he even carries all of his friends' emotions with him. And listen, I know it's corny, but it is the good type. Some good old 90s corny friendship stuff never hurt nobody, okay? And before I move on from this topic, I would like to touch on the aftermath of the fight. While I do acknowledge that this fight itself is good, the aftermath is so much better. Ro finally admitting defeat and realizing there was no point in running from emotions was really cool to see, and his death was the absolute peak of it, dying while standing and throwing his punch in the air and screaming, "I have no regrets. Heavens take me" is the type of gigachadri that would make Whitebeard go, damn, this man is valid. Actually, that doesn't even make any sense. I'm dumb. It would be the exact opposite of that. Ro would look at Whitebeard and go, damn, this man is valid. Cause Ro is just that brother. And with that, any character that matters in part 1 is over with. If I forgot about anyone, they just didn't matter. Shoo, go away. Now I would like to talk about strengths and weaknesses of this manga, because by no means is this manga perfect. And of course it's not perfect, it's damn near 20 years older than me. Going into it, I didn't expect the best story ever. The story definitely shows its age, and it's not the best. It is simple, it has some plot holes here and there, but that's okay because you don't read this type of manga for the story. It's kinda like Baki, you read it for the insanely well done choreographies, you read it for the gore, you read it for the very nice eye candy like panelings. Here, let me just give you an example of that. What the? Somebody there? The hell?
Surprise, motherfucker!
And after saying this, you should only get one conclusion: that I should never voice act in my disgusting life again, and mayhaps the fact that this manga's gore and choreography is just next level, huh? The best way for me to explain this manga would be a journey of manly men trying to become the manliest of men, while committing a shit ton of war crimes. And if you're a simple fella like me, you probably love this shit, right? Big muscle men fight men who are strong. I don't care about complex shit, man. That's simple good. I like this shit other than the war crimes. I do not associate me with that shit. And with that, we're done. If you're wondering why I'm not doing a part 2 review, I can give you my quick thoughts on it. It's decent, not as good as part 1. My favorite character in it is Gangplank, and it's basically like Death Note after L dies. It's there, you can watch it, some people love it, I don't. And that's it. That's all there is to this video. Bye! Okay, now that the normies left, I can give you my real reasoning on not doing a part 2. If I have to sit there and edit another scene of characters fighting each other in a video game, I'm going to put a bullet. Oh, wait a minute, I can use this video game as footage. Holy shit, I'm saved. Oh god, it's only on PlayStation. Fuck!